What are the key elements in being reasonable?
So you have to hear both sides. You have to hear the motivations on both sides, the whys of both sides, the stories of both sides. And then, like, for example, like right now, for me, okay, I'm trying to identify who's going to be the next CEO of one of the companies, 2, 3, 4, 5 years from now, whatever the timeline is. Okay. So I have to go through everybody and I have to process everybody and I have to see the situation what everybody else is in. That guy's motivation is this. This guy's motivation is that. He's got a shorter lifespan. That one's a little bit scared. This one's fully capable, just doesn't want the responsibility. That one wants the responsibility and wants the job, but is not capable. So you have to, and that guy needs a little bit more to it. That guy's more about his, you're looking at everything, and then you sit there and you say, okay, I think this is the best candidate.
What you're describing is literally one of my lectures in my psychology decision-making class. What are the types of decision rules that people use when they're making decisions in multi-attribute choices? You just described many attributes, motivation, lifespan, and so on, right? So typically, you could do one of two things. You could either look at all of the attributes weighted by their importance, right? So for example, if I'm choosing between different cars, if gas efficiency is a more important attribute to me than price, then I will weigh it differently. I'll put it all together and I'll pick the car that scores the highest on all of those attributes. Mm-hmm. But oftentimes people don't do what you just said, Pat. What they do is what's called the lexicographic rule. Lexicographic rule means I only look at my most important attribute and I choose the alternative that scores highest on that attribute. So for example, if I were choosing between toothpaste and price is the most important attribute, I'll pick the toothpaste that has the cheapest price, and that's it. So all the other 10 attributes I never looked at. That's what I used, by the way, as a psychological mechanism to explain why a lot of people voted for Trump, right? Because even if Hillary Clinton, when you put all of the attributes together, might have scored higher than Trump, many of the population only looked at a singular attribute. Let's suppose I'm an immigration guy. I only care about immigration. And if rightly or wrongly, I think that Trump scores better on immigration than Hillary, I stop right there. I choose Trump. I was using that to explain the psychological mechanisms for why Trump won to Sam Harris. Sam Harris is a guy who went completely Trump derangement syndrome, right? I mean, every single person who voted for Trump must have been a Nazi. And I said...
That's what Sam Harris said?
I mean...
No, I'm not saying said, but that's the position he was sort of advocating?
Sam Harris, you tell him any phenomenon, he'll link it to Trump. You just got diabetes, he's going to explain to you. And
by the way, he's super brilliant. Is it the same Sam Harris who debated
Ben Affleck?
Ben Affleck?
And actually, it's funny because I've always loved Sam. I appreciate him. He's supposed to be a rational guy, a meditation guy.
But he's got Trump derangement syndrome.
He's got such Trump derangement syndrome.
By the way, so does 50% of America.
Exactly right. Except that they don't pretend that they are the hyper-rational guys that Sam Harris is. But Trump truly did break Sam's brain. And so I used that explanation to at least offer him a possible way to understand why people who are not Nazis and who sleep with their sisters could have voted for Trump, right? If I prefer, as I said, immigration, and that's the only attribute I look at, it will be perfectly rational for me to choose Trump over Hillary. I don't have to be a Nazi who sleeps with my sister. And so decision-making is really an incredible field because it allows us to understand the cognitive processes that people go through in making a decision. How do I choose a mutual fund? How do I choose a politician? How do I choose a mate? So this is pretty much what I've done in my academic career, is study psychology of decision-making. So you really are in my wheelhouse here.
I will tell you, for me years ago, when you're going through the conversation about, when you're younger, all you want to think about, what's the key to success? What's the key to success? Hard work, choosing the right spots, doing this, doing that, doing this. From everybody I've watched win in business or they did very well in life, the best ones were those who were better at making decisions and processing issues. So I always wanted to talk to a person and then ask them, how'd you come to this conclusion? Because that process of how you came to this, if they're willing to tell you the real truth, because sometimes people will just give you the lazy answer. I don't want the lazy answer. Give me the real answer. How did you come to this conclusion? And if they give you the real methodology of how they came to that conclusion, you just figured out a formula. Got it. So first there was that experience with your dad that you watched, and I left a mark. Okay, so that's deep, that's emotional, that's painful. Got it. Then you notice that maybe you were yourself wrong, but that happened to you when somebody treated you and judged you the way you judge your dad, and you realized you didn't like it, and you said your dad must have not liked it as well, because that's Got it. 3, you were hanging on to something that your dad did years ago to your mom, and that's between them, but you took it personally to you. He never did it to you. He did it to your mom, but you love your mom. Fair. Okay, get it, but that doesn't mean he did it. Great. So you were able to let that go. How did you let that go? Through an experience you had spiritual, you had rock bottom, girl broke your heart, you lost somebody in your life. So did you need to go through that to make that decision? Yes. No. Who knows? And then eventually, so there's a certain.
Is that when he just went there?
Yeah.
No.
So,
Was that autobiographical?
I was going to say he just went boom, boom, boom.
No, but we don't talk like that.
Right.
But we decide like that.
Yeah.
So if we're able to call a timeout and say, got it. Here's what we're doing with this part. This totally makes sense. Here's what we're going to do next. Like when we wanted to move from LA to from California to Texas. Okay.
Right.
I sat in a room and I'm looking at everybody. I got Meral, who's about to get married. I got her husband.
Certified stud, by the way. Shout out to T.
Yeah, totally. I got all these guys
Love
sitting in
that
front of me. I'm like, okay, how am I going to sell Texas to these guys?
All right.
So I start with an open-ended question. I'll never forget this meeting. It was in 2011. Okay, and I say, so guys, what do you think about Texas? Texas? Oh, man, I've heard such bad things about Texas. Really? Tell me what you've heard. Did you know that Texas this? So now they start saying about the Texas stuff. Man, I could never go to work in cowboy uniform. Like, you have to wear these belts. I said, you think people in Texas wear buckles? Yeah. I mean, that's dude, what
You're
else?
born with a belt buckle.
It's like you think on the freeway, it's like, hey, I'm
living in Frisco.
So then eventually, gradually, I took all the concerns and I brought back stories to address every concern. And I did it over and over and over again. And then I had to sell Jen. Jen didn't want to move. I had to sell Melva. Melva didn't want to move. I had to sell family. I had to sell implied seller. And eventually, I'm like, guys, we have a meeting with Governor Perry and Mayor of Frisco, Mayor Masso. And we're going to go meet with Nolan Ryan, and we're going to meet with Don Nelson, and we're going to make a decision whether we like Texas or not. But look, we may not like it. Let's just see what it's like. Then we go to Texas. We spend a whole day with them. Then on the flight back, I'm like, so what do you guys think about Texas? Well, it's just more impressive than I thought. And it's like, okay. And then 2 months later, guys, we're moving to Texas.
So it sounds like they weren't anchored on their...
Right. It took 4 years.
So if you like this clip and you want to watch another one, click right here. And if you want to watch the entire podcast, click right here.